Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
I'm Hannah Elliott.
And I'm Matt Miller. This is Hot Pursuit. Coming up on today's show, we are all in on Tesla. Plus, we dabble a little bit in Rivian and Lucid, Porsche and Ferrari.
That's right. I mean, all the good stuff. Back to Tesla. It did announce this week some new, less expensive models that were rather stripped down, and the response has been underwhelming.
Yeah, aside from the newly redesigned Chevy Bolt, it was probably the biggest car news this week. And we get a deep dive with one of the most famous, one of the earliest and most outspoken investors in Tesla. We're joined by Ross Gerber, president and CEO of Gerber Kawasaki. For the listeners of our podcast who don't know, how did you get started? How did you become essentially the most famous Tesla investor?
Not by choice, that's for sure. It's been an extremely painful, fortunately profitable journey for me. But it really started, I think it was 2013 when the Model S came out, and Tesla went public, and it was like a $4 billion company. They were down the street from us in Santa Monica, so I knew who they were. And my parents had dealt with Elon because my stepfather had done some work with NASA, and he was part of the group that was working with SpaceX to move our space program to SpaceX. This was, 10, 15 years ago. And so they had dinner with Elon, and my mom said, this Elon Musk guy, he's a genius. He's doing amazing things. You should check him out. And I said, there's this Tesla thing down the street. They go public. So we start looking at the company, And so at the time they had no Model S. So we waited about a year, and then the Model S was like being launched. And we go down to Santa Monica to the showroom, and I looked at the Model S and I said, wow, this is a pretty nice car. And then I got in it and we drove it, and I said, if this electric car, this is like actually better than other cars. So I was one of the first people in the world to really realize like these were going to be better cars than ICE cars. Actually electric cars are better cars. And there's a lot of reasons why they're better, but they just are. And so we invested in Tesla right then and there because I was like, if they can make these cars, like this will sell. Like there's no doubt in my mind. And so that worked pretty quickly because the Model S did sell. And even at the time, there were lots of problems with the Model S with build. Tesla was known for building some of the worst cars at that time. They built great technology, but they had not mastered scaling automotive.
I remember Consumer Reports loved the first Model S, remember?
Yeah, but they had to fix every car that came off the line. Like literally every Model S had like the roof was misaligned. And so they'd have to re-glue on the roof of every Model S at a shop before they would deliver it to customers. Tesla's been doing this for years where they weren't good at manufacturing until the Model 3, really till the Texas factory. The Texas factory was their first really good factory because Fremont's like a bunch of different things put together. So basically like, Tesla was a great investment off the bat. It rallied for us. We made 5 times our money within the first year. So we took a bunch of profits because that's what we do. If we make 5 times our money really quickly. Crazily enough, I had about $100,000 worth of Tesla from the IPO. And if I wouldn't have sold any of it, God, I don't even know how much that'd be worth today. It's kind of like my Bitcoin. I wish I never sold any of my Bitcoin too. But, so I sold some of it at the time because I made money and I was like, this is great. And then Tesla went through this 5 years of rockiness when they launched they launched the Model X after the Model S. And that was kind of a disaster too because of the doors didn't work very well. And it was super hard to make these cars and they weren't making money on the cars, even though they were super cool. And the stock really hadn't done anything. And then that was we're doing all this to launch the Model 3. And so when the Model 3, the scaled Tesla, was supposed to come out, this was about 2018, that's when things got really difficult for Tesla. So they were running out of money, basically. They had about $1 billion in the bank. They're losing money. They got 2 expensive models that people like, but they're having, they can only make 100,000 a year of these cars. So they're making 100,000 cars. They're selling them, great. but we're trying to scale this Model 3. And what happened was Elon had this idea that he was going to build all these, cars with robots. And he built a factory filled with robots. And when they tried to scale Model 3 in 2018, the robots didn't work. And so they couldn't get up to 5,000 cars a week, which is what they needed to do to survive. And so they were stuck at about 2,000 cars a week with the process they had. And it was desperate. So what happened was I was on the news a lot because I was a Tesla bull. And then it got very lonely because the short sellers decided that Tesla was going to go bankrupt. So every short seller in the world started shorting Tesla, from Chanos to Michael Burry from The Big Short to Einhorn to Andrew Left. Like it was literally like a cabal of investment firms against Tesla. And then there was like me, Kathy Wood, and Ron Barrett. So we were like the only three investor people that actually stuck with Elon and invested in Tesla. So in 2018, they raised money in a convertible bond offering. They were really desperate. It was such a good deal. And that ended up being extremely profitable. So we invested more money into Tesla at that point because I went to the factory myself. And this was like early 2019. And I brought my wife because I wanted to make sure that my eyes were not crazy. And I was like, if they're willing to open up everything to let me see it, like, cool, like, awesome. So, like, I wanted to meet Elon, but I didn't get to meet him that time. But I met Jerome Guillon, who was actually the guy in charge of operations. I toured the whole factory, went to the tent. So I learned how to build electric cars that day. Like, it was amazing day. And at the end of that day, I was like, this is the most incredible company I've ever seen. They're going to make these cars, and Jerome's going to make these cars. And they threw the robots out into the field, and they put humans in to finish the cars. And within 2 or 3 months, they were up to 5,000 a week, and Tesla was saved. But yet the market was like still thinking it was going to collapse. But I was like, no, they've scaled. I went on TV. I was like, they've scaled. There was an article in Electric because they had, it's a blog, and they had gone the day before me, and they thought the same thing. They're like, everything's going great. Like, why is everybody shorting the stock saying it's going to collapse? And we had this conversation. I don't know. Maybe they just haven't been to the factory. But I'm going on TV saying I went to the factory, like it's working. It wasn't like it was a secret. I was telling everybody. And so I became kind of like, so then like Tesla took off, so then, we made a lot of money, and all the internet people that followed me made a lot of money on Tesla. So there was this cult that sort of formed.
You were big
Tesla.
on Twitter. You were big on Twitter, right?
Yeah, I'm still big on Twitter. And it's like, I got huge in 20 and 21 when Tesla took off and the markets took off and everybody went online and everybody's like stuck in the pandemic trading stocks. And then like there's me and Tesla, and the thing goes like, crazy. And we like 2020 was like one of my best years ever in the markets. And we just made a fortune. We made hundreds of millions of dollars on Tesla. So it was just great,
Dude, how many Teslas have you had? Have you had every single, the
I've
S,
had every
the X,
Tesla.
the 3?
I've had every Tesla.
Yeah.
So, but I have the Cybertruck now.
Is it your favorite of all?
What?
Is it your favorite one of all?
It's not my favorite of all because if Elon would let me sit down with him for 30 minutes and tell him the things that need to be fixed on this truck, it could be incredible. But there's things on the truck that make it annoying, and they can fix them.
Like what?
But they just aren't. What?
Tell us, and maybe he'll listen to this podcast.
Well, I'll give you an example. The car is too big. It's just too big. It doesn't fit anywhere very easily. And if it was a little smaller, it would be just as good a truck, but it would actually fit in people's garages and parking spaces.
You mean the overall dimensions, the overall
it's just
length
too
and
big.
width?
It's a tank. It's a massive tank, and it drives incredibly well for its size and weight. So, like, if you made it a little smaller, it would be the super dope truck, right? And then there's things like you can't see out the back of the truck, like you can't see out the back. So they put this mirror, like a rear view mirror, but it actually doesn't show anything. Now that, when you're a human, that fucks you up, because you keep looking at a blank rear view mirror. I was like, why do they put the mirror there? Well, they have to by law, but there's nothing happens in the mirror. But yet right below the mirror, they have the video of what's happening behind you. And I said, well, why didn't they just put it in the mirror? So you end up like going like this half the time with your head because your eyes just, you can't retrain yourself not to look at a rear view mirror.
I have to say, I'm very surprised you haven't had time with Elon, considering
Not
how
recently.
involved.
Elon has a very simple philosophy. If you tell him things he does not want to hear, he hates you.
Okay. So maybe. Go ahead.
And I'm not the guy to make him feel good. My lot in life is to be a pain in the butt. And I invest now $4 billion for people. I invest in companies, and these people pay me to represent them against companies that are very self-interested. Executives make tons of money, tons and tons of money at every company, and they need to be accountable as shareholders. I represent public shareholders, people like you, people like me. I represent the public. I don't represent super rich people.
You take your fiduciary duty seriously.
We have 14,000 clients, from $25 of investment to $100 million client. You see what I'm saying? My whole firm, GK, it functions around helping people build a financial future, no matter where you're starting. Okay. And so the way I look at it is, I'm the guy that represents the public shareholders in the stock market against an industry that makes billions of dollars off of us and should treat us well, because we fund them. Okay. Yes. So we fund the businesses. We're funding AI right now. You want to start an AI company, who do you think they call? They call investors. They come by my office every day, these private guys. They want money all the time. I go, I only do public stuff, and it keeps.
So wait, what's the real talk, Ross? When you see the new lower priced versions of the Model Y, and what's actually going on there?
This is based off the news.
That's why you guys tell our listeners. It sucks. Yeah.
The news this week that Tesla has introduced new versions of its top-selling models for less than $40,000.
Right, but It's like they suck. It's like we're introducing a crappy version of our car to make up for losing the tax credit. And so, when you build a product, you want to build the best product ever. You want to build it for a price that people can afford it, but you want people coming home with the best product ever. Let's use Apple as an example. That was one of my first great investments as a young person, and Steve Jobs was one of my main, I loved Steve Jobs back when I was younger, and we made a ton of money on Apple, still a top holding. And Apple, I just bought my kid a new Apple MacBook Air, and he ran around the yard twice. He was so excited for this thing. And I open up this product, and it's phenomenal. Apple products, innovation, this and that. No, they're phenomenal products. We all use them across the world. They seem to never disappoint. We all want more and more, but actually they make phenomenal products, right? And so if you want an iPhone that is cheaper, you just get an older model. Okay. But they work really well. I was using a 13 for a long time. I finally upgraded, So Tesla was always built, in my mind, in the same model. It was Apple. It was a hardware product with great software. It literally was Apple. And I was like, Elon could be the next Steve Jobs. And that's what I'm saying. If we can make cars that drive themselves and they're electric, we could sell 10 to 20 million a year. That was the original business plan of Tesla. Okay. So when you see a company rip out what makes that company so great out of the product just to make it cheaper, that is never a good sign for a company. It's never a good sign. I think when you think about Tesla as a brand, what made the brand cool was that it had fart sounds that you could do in your car. What made the brand cool was that you had a screen in the back seat that your kids could watch YouTube when you're driving 3 hours. It's kind of nice. What made the brand cool was that the sound system was so good. One of the things I love about electric cars is that you don't have noise from the engine.
True.
The cars are silent, and then they have this great sound system in there, and I could play my jazz music, if it's recorded on a good, more modern music. It's like they're sitting right there. It was so good. So if you spent $40,000 on a Model Y last month and you got the new Model Y, it's a great car. Okay? Mm-hmm. So you take this great car, you help elect a guy that hates electric vehicles, who then takes away all the benefits to society for fighting climate, and then you respond by making a crappier version of your car
And we should say the new models have less battery range. They are stripped of features like the screens that you mentioned, ambient
How about
lighting.
the glass roof? They covered the glass
completely
roof.
stripped.
It's one of the best things. You sit back, you see the stars. I mean,
it really did neuter
people
the cars.
buy Teslas. They would buy a Tesla, they would get in this car, and they came from a Toyota, a BMW, or Mercedes or whatever, and they'd be like, this thing is fast, it's quiet, I don't have to go to gas stations, the software's amazing, plays great music, I can make my kids laugh, it's got screen in the back. Like, it was a great deal. It was just a great car.
Do you think, Ross, the startups like Lucid or Rivian have anything to match that or are doing a better job?
Well, what those companies did was from the beginning, they didn't need or rely on the incentives because the cars were too expensive. So they sell to a different market. You know, when
but do you like them?
I like my Rivian a lot. You know, I have the RS1, or it's my wife's, and so I drive both, and I really like the Rivian. I think they did a great job. I think Rivian has other issues which are more operational, like when you're trying to get stuff fixed. But it's just like you're buying a new company, you know, it is what it is.
I can't believe they made the decision to stick with the 400-volt architecture, though. I mean, to me, that feels like almost decontenting a Model Y. You know, when they had the choice to go to an 800-volt architecture and faster charging, they decided to stick with the old thing.
Well, there's lots of different challenges with faster charging versus slower charging, depending on battery degradation and quality and all these other factors. So the thing about fast charging is, the faster you charge, the more issues you have with battery life, you know? So there's this trade-off of like, how fast do we want the car to charge, but also we don't want the battery to like die after 6 years. And so that's one of the challenges, but they just did these 500 volt, megavolt new chargers. And I saw them charging it over 1,200 miles per hour added to the car, which is faster than I've ever seen. And I'm like, dude, you can charge your car completely in 15 minutes now, a regular Tesla. So I think, you know, a lot of companies are trying different ways to address charging and battery technology, and Tesla's doing this too with 4680. And I think Tesla is the best at this, you know, by far. Like, they get charging and batteries better than anybody in the world, by far. Lucid vehicles I also like but don't love because the battery's too big in the Lucid, and you know it's kind of like this hulking luxury vehicle, and it's turned out to sell pretty well because people are buying those now instead of Model S's. So I like the Lucid and I like the Rivian. I think they're good brands. I just think that they serve the wealthy market and not the masses in any way, and so there's a limited potential for those companies until they have cheaper products. And if they make cheaper products, it hurts being a luxury brand. And I don't think it's bad to be a luxury brand in EV, because it seems like all the luxury brands don't want to make EVs now that Elon, kind of got everybody out of making EVs now.
You're listening to Hot Pursuit from Bloomberg Radio. We have more with Gerber Kawasaki President and CEO Ross Gerber after this.
Now back to our deep dive on Tesla with Ross Gerber of Gerber Kawasaki.
So can Tesla straddle that balance between, you just said it's not great that they're selling these cheap products that have been stripped, but they're more affordable. That is not a luxury
but you got to look
product.
Women are very brand conscious. Okay. So when you think about how men think about brands versus women, it's very different. And men, our buying process is much shorter. We
I don't know about that. I may beg to differ. I think I know a lot of men who are pretty. If you talk about wristwatches, men are very brand conscious.
I'm talking about like how we perceive a brand. Now, when a woman buys a brand, let's say we go into a Prada or a Chanel, and we're buying a very high end brand. Okay, if there's anything in that store that's cheap, it hurts that store. You see what I'm saying? So there's nothing in the store that's cheap. The brand that's done the best at this is Tiffany's. Tiffany's, you can buy really expensive stuff, but you can find some things that you can afford there.
It's important to have a lipstick, and maybe the lipstick costs $80 because it's Hermes, but I have bought an $80 Hermes lipstick just because it felt special at that Hermes store. And that is a relatively affordable thing. You know what I'm saying?
I guess, but you're saying that, but most people are like gasping right now that you spent $80
I
on
know.
lipstick.
I know it's completely irrational, but I did it.
Right, exactly. Because of the brand, though, and I do this too. And you brought up watches, which is exactly what men spend money on based off the brand, 100%. Okay, and so we don't care about a lot of jewelry, but watches is one of them. And especially if you're so sophisticated, whatever, you got to have one of these. You got to have an AP or something like that. And so.
Speaking of John Mayer.
Brands
Speaking of
work
those
really
guitars,
hard on,
yeah.
Like brands, like Louis Vuitton is a stock we owned once, and Ferrari, and I spent some time studying the brand philosophy of Ferrari, and it's genius. Like Ferrari is a genius brand. They literally make $100,000 minimum profit on every car they sell. These people, they sell the cars to the same people over and over again. They don't even need new customers. They make $8,000 a year. They can charge 400, 500, 800,000 a car. People pay it, right? Yeah. Margin's always 40%.
Everybody wants to be Ferrari.
It's Ferrari. You're in the club. You can't just go buy a Ferrari.
No.
Okay.
True.
So
you gotta buy 5 to get the one you want.
Brands. Once I had enough money, I started figuring this out. You go into a AP store and you're like, oh, I want to look at your watches, and they go, we don't have any. Yeah. You have to come in for an interview, and we'll decide what watch we think is great for you. And I go, dude, I got $50,000 to spend right fucking now. I want a watch, and the guy's like, I can't sell you a watch this way, and that's when I learned the lesson. I go, what is this? It's like a fucking game. Yeah. It's a game. I'm a capitalist.
You have to go to Lamborghini or Aston Martin.
I was ready to buy a watch that day. I made a good trade. I made 50 G's. I was going to spend it. And now I'm going to save it. I got to pay for private school now. Sorry. And so I paid for private school. What? A watch or my kid year in private school? It was done. So now my kid's back in public school, and I was like, I'm going to buy a Ferrari. So you go to the Ferrari dealership, because actually private school costs the same as a Ferrari or an AP. It's $50,000 a year. So I was like, oh, I'll buy a Ferrari now that my kid's back in public school, right? So you go down to Ferrari, like, I want a Ferrari. They go, I got anything to sell you. You got to go to Italy. You got to convince them to sell you a car.
You might need to become Catholic.
So that's luxury.
Who knows?
Luxury is like, how exclusive can we make the perception?
On that note, I have to ask, because this week Ferrari had its biggest share drop since the IPO. Right. Okay, the outlook was a little bit conservative, but one of the other things that they told us is they're going to scale back on their EV ambitions. So, would you buy a fully EV Ferrari, or when you buy a Ferrari, is the whole point of it to have the internal combustion engine?
I'm not the traditional market for Ferrari, so my opinion doesn't matter. But
that's why we have you here. We want to know what you think.
Yeah.
For me, I'm waiting for somebody to understand they can build the best supercar ever that's electric, because they drive better and faster and handle better than gas cars, period.
But you have the Rimac Nevera. Ferrari,
what?
Rimac Nevera.
Yeah, that's a fast car. But I'm just saying, like, the Plaid was the fastest car on the road when I was driving it. Like 1.9, 0 to 60. I mean, it's hard to beat that. And if you are beating it, you're at the risk. You might just take off, like it's fast, right? But like the Elon thing, this is what bothers me the most, is that these companies are now dialing back electric vehicle ambitions because the pressure isn't going to be on them like it was to make these cars, or they're not going to compete. Now, the problem with the Ferrari electric is it's $500,000 for the car. So it's really hard to get people to buy into a new concept of Ferrari without the big engine, which is kind of what Ferrari's about a little bit. Like, I had this Maserati once, and when I bought it, they were like, it's a Ferrari, it's the same engines as Ferraris, and you get in the car and you turn it on and it's and it makes you feel like a man. I'm more of a man, like, I got a Ferrari, it's like having a good horse, it's like in the old days, if you had a good horse in the old days, you were a better cowboy.
I'm with you.
That's right.
I'm with you on that. I'm not a
still
very good skier, but as long as I have the best gear.
You get in the car and you push a button and it doesn't make any sound. It seems to be very hard for older Ferrari owners, And I'm like, how about the idea that it's just a dope car and it drives super good, and you don't need the engine,
What do you think about the Porsche Taycan, by the way?
I think it's a beautiful car. Like, the Porsche did a great job with luxury, and the pricing is expensive. Like, it's almost 200K, but it's a great looking vehicle. The problem is Porsche sucks at software, and the cars have software issues. And I don't know if they've solved it this year or not, but if you buy one of these cars, and they don't do over the air updates. So when you have a software problem, you got to take it to Porsche. Now, this is like I would call the anti-technology, where you make technology that's better, that makes your car worse, And so that's my issue with that. They've got to get better software, and they got to figure out that car companies of the future are software companies more than they're hardware companies. And they don't know that yet. And they're still trying to be hardware companies, but really they're building iPhones, that drive, not cars. And that's what Tesla innovated that still most companies haven't really fully grasped.
Ross, I just want to put a pin and a bow on our Tesla conversation just to wrap things up. Where do you see us going from here after this announcement about the lower priced cars? What's your outlook now?
So in the next 6 months, all this stuff comes to roost, right? Like, there's no credits anymore. So how many Teslas are we going to sell in the next 6 months? And I don't know. I just don't know. I know from my experience as an economics person and somebody who studies business that we should see a pretty dramatic drop off in sales this quarter as we pulled demand forward with the end of the credits and a great new car, and people used that, and they had a great quarter because people went out and bought Teslas, hold their nose. They don't like Elon. Who cares? It's a great car.
I've seen the stickers. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, the stickers. I feel bad for the people that feel like they need to justify it. How about you just care about the environment?
Agreed.
Like, it's okay. Like, the heads of so many companies suck. So, if you want to get into that, Elon's just another one of the bad guys who runs another company, But I want to do what's best for me and the environment, and Tesla still is a great vehicle for that. So I think that it's going to be a hard time for Tesla because they still don't advertise. Elon doesn't think he's doing anything wrong, insulting people constantly, and people hate him. In Europe, they won't even buy the car. China is now getting ahead of us, and they're making extremely good electric vehicles, and they're extremely competitive, and the government's all in. So what I also fear out of this Trump administration philosophy of going away from electric vehicles, then now we're going to lose the race to build the best electric vehicles. So China knew that when they let the Tesla factory in, and that was why they did it. And then who would think it would be so fortuitous that we would actually stop making great electric vehicles, and now they can take the entire market from everybody. And that's exactly what's going to happen, is in the next 5 years, Chinese EVs will be like the top vehicles in the electric vehicle market. I have no doubt.
You think they'll be here in the U.S.?
Well, we're going to try to stop them, right? Because Isn't that capitalism? Stop the competitors not free market capitalism, So I don't know. They're in Europe. I see them in Mexico.
Sure.
So,
We've got Chinese buses here, I believe.
Yeah, BYD buses.
Sure.
So if you're a free market guy like me, you're kind of like, why shouldn't I be able to buy a BYD?
Dude, I feel you on every level. I feel like we're soul brothers.
Are you guys? I was going to say, are you long lost brothers? Because Matt is just sitting back grinning.
On a podcast together. This is why I don't have my own podcast, because I try to find great podcasters to be on their shows.
You need to come on more often.
I'm so glad we got you.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Well, that's what I was saying. I see. I look at Bloomberg a lot, and because there's nothing else to look at anymore that I believe in, and sadly, Reuters and Bloomberg is all I've got now. And so, no offense to all the other channels I'm on. I love you all too. But the quality is, you guys are getting worked,
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm like President Trump.
I love your podcast, and I love cars, and I love technology. And I think that this is one of the most exciting times in technology. You didn't ask me about what I think about putting Grok on the car. He put the AI thing on the Tesla too.
Oh,
and it totally screwed up the infotainment system because Grok isn't integrated.
I didn't even know.
So when you push the mic to make a phone call now, and you're like, call my mom, Grok's like, well, I can't do that. And I was like, then why are you on my car? And it's like, well, Elon put me on your car. And I was like, but if you can't run anything on the car, like, why are you on my car? And how do I get back to the thing that used to do stuff? And it's like, you can't.
Interesting.
And I was like, going to record this and post this because Grok will tell you, like, it doesn't make any sense why I'm on the car right now because I can't do anything.
That's crazy.
You know?
Wow.
And but it's the beginning of a big innovation that's about to happen in cars where and our lives where AI will actually do stuff for us. Right now it's telling us stuff and it's great for research, but next it's going to do stuff for us. Buy me those tickets.
Yes.
Order me that dinner.
Agentic.
Plan that trip for me.
Use my
book
Bloomberg
those
for
airline
me.
tickets. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just driving the new Aston Martin Vanquish, and they are the first.
That's a great car looking.
It's insanely good. I'm so blown away.
Obsessed.
Dude, the way
I had an Aston Martin once and I loved it too.
the handling on this, I don't know how the engineers did it. It doesn't jar you, but it's also so sporty. But the one thing that on the tech side,
I just saw that.
they are the first company or the first car maker to use Apple CarPlay Ultra. So it's CarPlay, but it also controls everything in your car, drive modes and climate controls, and so you don't have to switch back and forth. It's really.
So did it work well?
It worked really well. It really
because Apple failed in this whole car thing pretty bad.
And the AI
thing. Original CarPlay was like kind of a joke, and manufacturers were just putting it on, but it was basically like a cheap integration. But a full auto integration makes a lot of sense. Because car makers can't make software, as I was just saying. Yeah. And so let Apple just take over your car. Kind of makes sense. Be your iOS, of your car. It's sort of like the next big battle is who controls your car.
Right. QNX or Apple.
And that was sort of like, we're going to license the Tesla software and all this kind of stuff too, which could have happened if that's what they were focused on. Because, even when you get in like a good new car, most of that software to me is pretty like ridiculously bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't compare to anything like a video game or anything like that. It's like, like
dude, I agree. We're going to have you back on again because this has been great. I love your candor.
Yeah.
I think this is the beginning of a long relationship.
My final tip is
we're going to talk about cars. Like, I love it.
Or
cars
music.
Or music. I got my Springsteen t-shirt on. We didn't talk about Springsteen.
Love it.
Special thanks to my new best friend, Ross Gerber, for joining us today. He is the president and CEO of Gerber Kawasaki.
That does it for this week's show. Remember to follow us and subscribe to Bloomberg Hot Pursuit on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen. You can also send us your comments. Please email us your comments at hotpursuit@bloomberg.net.
And check out Hannah's columns and stories on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. Go there for car reviews, events, and stories that you won't find anywhere else. Find it all at Bloomberg.com/pursuits/autos. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott. We'll be back in your podcast feed again next week.